Okay, I wanted to do a comparison on El Salvador and Belize today, and we're getting a lot of people that are interested in these two countries, and for good reason. They do have a lot of good benefits, which I wanted to go over with you today, but there's some things here that you need to know before you take the big plunge and make a trip and move to either one of those places. One is the language test. You will have to take a test in Spanish to get the passport for El Salvador. You will not have to have this for Belize. Of course, Belize is an English-speaking country. Makes it a lot easier to get things done when you're in an English-speaking country versus one that's not. And again, Belize doesn't require any sort of language test. Even if you speak English, there's no English test that you even have to take as of when I'm doing this video now. You will have to pass a Spanish test in El Salvador. So if you're not planning on doing that, then you're wasting time going there and trying to get the passport. Let's look at crime. Now, Bukele's made a big difference. The guy that now heads El Salvador, crime has dropped dramatically. They've had a lot of criticism from human rights abuses, but I'm going to tell you, it's virtually impossible to go in and take a country that had the highest per capita murder rate. It switched back and forth with Honduras year after year, and having the highest per capita homicide, this is murder rate, of any country in the world. These two countries were the worst every year, and that was Honduras and El Salvador. Now, El Salvador has dramatically dropped because Bukele's come in and he's arrested all these gang members. But one thing I want to tell you too about crime, just so you'll know, Belize has got high crime. They were up there at the top, not as high as El Salvador was. Now, El Salvador is going to drop way below Belize now, but they probably should hire Bukele to come in and straighten out some of their problems. Mexico also, and there's a lot of other countries there in Central America that could probably, Guatemala also. I mean, he has made a dramatic difference in the crime, but you will have a real strict regime there in El Salvador. And in most cases, it will play in your favor. But, there are human rights abuses, I have no doubt, that are taking place. But again, like I said, you're going to have that. I don't think you can do it otherwise. I don't think you can go in and try to take everybody to court and people get off. Then you got to have other ways to doing it. And it comes down to a loss of human rights, and are you willing to do that? Some will, some won't. I'm not saying which one's right or wrong. I'm just telling you, you're going to have that to overturn a crime rate like they had in El Salvador overnight, and that's what Bukele's done. He's made I will say this, in my opinion, he's done a good job, okay? 95% approval rate. Boy, a president of the U.S. would love to have anywhere close to that. Let's look at some other things here, too. Now, Belize, again, does have a higher crime rate, but a lot of people in Belize never see it because most of it's in drug trafficking and gangs. If you're not involved with that, you never see it. I was just talking to a lady the other day on the telephone in Belize that was from El Salvador, and she spoke fluent English. And we were talking about El Salvador, and she mentioned, I told her how much the crime rate had changed. And she started laughing. She says, well, I grew up in El Salvador. She says, I don't even notice any difference. She says, because I just never saw the crime. The only people really that saw the crime were the policemen, because they went in there where the dead bodies were, but most people never actually saw that. They were never affected unless they were involved with drug trafficking or gangs. And most weren't, so they didn't really see the difference, okay? But it is nice to be able to clean that mess up, because you could get hit in the crossfire. But like I said, you could live in both places and never tell a difference in the crime rate in either countries between Belize or El Salvador. Visa-free travel. Now, by far, El Salvador right now has better visa-free travel than Belize does. Belize only has 101 countries you can go to visa-free or visa-free on arrival. El Salvador's got 141 countries. Now, you got to remember, Belize doesn't have visa-free to the Schengen countries, which can make a big difference because and I think Belize will get that. Maybe a couple of years off, maybe 5 years, but I think within 5 years they'll have that. Most of the countries in Central America already have that visa-free to the Schengen areas. but Belize does not have that yet. But you're looking at, for El Salvador, they got 141 countries visa-free or visa-free on arrival versus Belize's 101. 40 countries more with El Salvador. That's a big plus. Now, once Belize gets the Schengen countries added, then that visa-free travel will come more in even with both countries. But I still say that El Salvador will probably still have more visa-free countries that you can go to, okay? And you'd maybe have to look at the list and tell which is of the visa-free travel with those, with the Belize versus El Salvador would be best for you. But again, the passport's by far better in El Salvador. So this is something you have to think of. Now, Freedom Index, I'm going to tell you Belize is by far has a lot better Freedom Index now because of what is going on with El Salvador. I can have people disagree with me on this, but I'm going to tell you something. If somebody stick drugs in your bag because they don't like you, you can spend 45 years in prison in El Salvador. You will agree with me once that happens to you, okay? So you have to be very careful when you're in a country that is going nuts in getting rid of drugs, okay? And I think it's a great idea, but I'm just telling you, these are some things that you're going to have to think about because it could backfire on you going in that country. Somebody doesn't like you could go in and just plant something in your house, your bags or whatever, and man, you could have a ton of years, maybe even life in prison, okay? And have years before you can even talk to an attorney, okay? So there's a good side of that, there's a bad side to it. I actually like what Bukele's doing, okay? I think he's making a big difference. I think maybe Mexico and Honduras and some of these other countries in Central America probably should hire him and bring him in, especially Mexico. Mexico's a basket case, man, of crime and corruption. It's awful. But now let's look at the time to get the passport. I'm going to tell you, folks, you're looking at, I don't care what the statutory period says, I'm telling you, 7 to 15 years to get the passport in either country, okay? Even if you know the language, it won't make any difference. 7 to 15 years to get the passport. I know that's a fact. I've talked to people. I know how these countries work. In Central America, they're incredibly inept. If you want something fast, you ought to go with St. Kitts. You can get as quick as 45 to 60 days. It's going to cost you some money to do it. But if you've got a lot of net worth, in my opinion, you're a lot better off going to St. Kitts to begin with to get the passport. You can get it fast. You don't even have to move to St. Kitts to do that. The nice thing about St. Kitts, though, is if you want to set up a local company, okay, you don't have to pay any income taxes. There's income taxes in El Salvador and Belize for local business. If you do your business outside the country, no income taxes because both of those countries have territorial tax systems. It doesn't relieve you of your responsibility in U.S. taxes. You still can qualify for the foreign overseas exclusion, which is roughly for this year $224,000, $112,000 for a husband and wife. If you want unlimited, you need to give up your U.S. citizenship. Okay. Foreign overseas exclusion does not help you except for earned income. It does not help you on investment income. So you have to relinquish to get out of that part. Okay. Now Belize is like I said. I'll be honest with you. If I had a choice between both of them, because of my age and stuff, I would pick Belize because I don't want to learn another language. And I don't want to get residency in a country unless I know somewhere down the road it's almost 100% I'm going to get the passport. It's nowhere close to 100% in El Salvador for me because I would have to pass the Spanish test and I have no desire to learn it. So if you're like me, then I wouldn't take that. I would take Belize over El Salvador. That's my opinion there. Now, again, if you have a choice between, if you got the money, I would pick St. Kitts and Nevis over either one of the other countries because you can get it as quick as 45 to 60 days, number one. Number two is if you want to set up a local business, no income tax, no capital gains tax, no estate tax, no inheritance tax. Now, St. Kitts doesn't have an income tax. El Salvador and Belize does have an income tax. So now all three of these allow dual citizenship, and you can live there, and all three of them totally income tax free if your business is done outside the country. But again, if you're looking at the passport option, to me, it's so much easier going with a fast track program like St. Kitts. If you want to know more on this, go to our website, www.citizenshipquickly.com, and ask for some help. And I would like to hear from you. If you got a question or comment, put it below. And again, don't forget to hit the subscribe button at the right of your screen right here, and you get new videos automatically as they come out. And I look forward to talking to you on the next video. Take care.